I explained the last class. Last class I explained the respiratory systems, all images like that to alveoli functions and gases transportations, oxygen and carbon dioxide, then reach the organs too. This is the particular position of human respiratory systems. Now today transportation of oxygen. Now today transportation of oxygen. How do the transport the oxygen? The respiratory gases are transported through the blood. So here blood is one of the transported vehicle. So reach the transported vehicle, uh, the carrying the oxygen and reach the target cells, and target cells are releasing the carbon dioxide and receive the blood and out through outside the carbon dioxide. So the respiratory gases are transported through the blood. The oxygen diffused into the pulmonary blood in the alveoli is transported to heart by pulmonary venue, and from the heart is tissue through systematic arteries. The systematic arteries. So this is the function of respiratory to human being and the respiratory functions. The oxygen diffused into the pulmonary blood. The blood that blood color is red color. Why? Because this is having the heme parts, hemoglobin, heme plus globin. Those are define the equal hemoglobin HbO2. The oxygen diffused into the pulmonary blood in the alveoli is transported to heart by pulmonary vein and from heart to tissues through systematic arteries. In the same way, in the same way, the carbon dioxide discharged by the cells at the tissue levels is transported back to heart by systematic veins and from heart to lungs through pulmonary arteries. So this is both oxygen and carbon dioxide, which is the transported. The blood is the main transported to oxygen and discharge carbon dioxide. The transported vehicle is blood. So the oxygen is transported by the blood with the assistance for erythrocytes. So erythrocytes is the what is the meaning erythrocytes? Red blood cells. RBC is called to erythrocytes. Red blood cells. Oxygen is transported by the blood with assistance of erythrocytes. The RBC contain hemoglobin is a transporter pigment which has four polypeptide chains. The blood is peptide organ. The peptide polypeptide chains like the 2 alpha, 2 beta. Four polypeptide chains is having 2 alpha and 2 beta. Each chain is associated with the heme group. Each and every chain like that, four chains having the associated with the heme group which binds to a molecule of oxygen. Thus are one molecule of hemoglobin binds to four molecules of oxygen, forming of oxyhemoglobin. Like that, the formation of chemical formation like that, HbO2, oxyhemoglobin. About 97% of oxygen is transported in the form of oxyhemoglobin to tissues, and 3% is transported in dissolved from blood plasma. It is found that 100 ml of blood carries about 20.2 ml of oxygen. For example, you have taken the 100 ml of blood carries about 20.2 ml of oxygen. Formation of oxyhemoglobin is reservable, and it's dissociated easily in tissues. Like that, hemoglobin plus 4 oxygen cells two alpha and two beta cells. Beta contains is equal to HbO4. It is the name of the oxyhemoglobin. The oxyhemoglobin is formed at the respiratory surface in the alveolar capillaries. Alveolar capillaries. This is the gases is discharged and receiving the particular place of human respiratory system is alveolar capillaries. This is called as oxygen loading. At the tissue levels, oxyhemoglobin dissociates and releases oxygen to cells called uploading. The affinity of oxygen to oxyhemoglobin is explained on the basis of oxygen dissociation curve. So the dissociated, what is the dissociated curve? The taker of oxygen, which is percentage of oxygen receiving the in cells, it is called as oxygen dissociation curves. The quality of oxygen which can be held by hemoglobin depends on the partial pressures of oxygen. The relationship between the two can be graphically represented by a curve called oxygen hemoglobin curve. So see here the oxygen hemoglobin curve like that shape. The quality of oxygen which can be held by hemoglobin depends on the partial pressures of oxygen like that PO2. The relationship between the two can be graphically represented by a curve called oxygen hemoglobin curve. This curve is sigmoid shaped. Sigmoid means S shaped. This curve is sigmoid in nature and is a envisages the silent features containing of takes of dissociation of varying pressures of oxygen. An essential feature of oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve, commonly called as oxygen dissociation curve, is that hemoglobin takes up oxygen when partial pressure of the latter is high and oxyhemoglobin dissociates uh, when pressure of oxygen. When pressure of oxygen dissociation when the PO2 is low. The hemoglobin is hemoglobin is highly provincial to the 1 is to 2 ratio. It is the dissociation curves of the oxygen nerves. The quality of oxygen when they taken off to variations to. So this is the oxygen dissociation curve. Like that, this is the structure is sigma shaped. So the oxygen dissociation curve defined in the above feature is the normal average blood pH. Very important of average blood pH. The pH means potential of hydrates. So the blood pH is 7.4 in and POCD like that too. 7.4 is the is common the blood pH. The average blood pH is 7.4 and PCOD 40 milligrams. However, the survival of factors can shift to the oxygen dissociation curve to the right or to the left. The shift of the dissociation curve to the right to results in greater release of oxygen from hemoglobin oxygen at a given oxygen tension. In other words, is a shift to the right decreases the affinity of blood hemoglobin oxygen is currently shifted is not the accession. So each every is the oxygen the particular place is the 40 the tissues at the rest movement of 40 mmFg. Oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve shaped is segment shaped. Hemoglobin accordingly to results in the decreased release of oxygen from to hemoglobin. See, this is the very important. See, one of the mm, one. uh, so see, this one of the very important of oxygen. Uh, the respiratory centers, the regulation now regulation of respirations. How to the respirations of regulation in human oxygen respiration? The nervous system is normally adjusts the rate of alveolar vent- ventilation almost exactly to the demands of the body. The next point is oxygen pressures PO2 and carbon dioxide pressure PCO2 in the arterial blood are hardly alerted. This is the heavy exercise. So this is how the respiratory mechanism, the cells of receiving the oxygen and discharge the carbon dioxide. Those are factors depend by the oxygen and carbon dioxide, the nerve impulse. The several groups of neurons in the medulla oblongata and pons of the brain stem. The dorsal respiratory groups, inspiration, the ventral respiratory group, mainly expiration. The phonogenetic center, dorsal in the pons control rate and the depth, depth of breathing. So this is image clearly inhibits the fourth ventricles, dorsal respiratory groups and ventral respiratory groups. This is the image of the vagus nadi. Vagus nerve is very important. Vagus glossopia vagal is the control respiratory in the nerves of vagus nerve, the respiratory mental pathway. See this observe clear in respiration. Next one, dorsal respiratory group. The dorsal respiratory group, the control of respiration and respiration rhythm, nucleus of the tracts, solitaries and tracheal subsequence, vagus and glossopharyngeus. The peripheral chemotraps and barioreceptors and receptors in the lungs. Then next one, rhythmical inspiration discharges. This is the rhythmical because the exterior receiving the oxygen and discharge of carbon dioxide. Those are the mechanism depends on rhythmical inspiration and discharges. The transcription experiments are re- repetitive bursts of inspiration, neuronal action potential. The case of known as propagation, the neural network neurons from the adjacent areas of the medulla oblongata. So this is the function, the oxygen and carbon dioxide. The next one, inspiration ramp and signal. The transmitted to the inspiration muscles diaphragm, the very important of oxygen to carbon dioxide, receiving the oxygen and discharge the carbon dioxide. The movement is defined by the diaphragm organ. It begins weekly. It begins weekly and increases steadily in the ramp manner for about two cases, abruptly for approximately the next 3 years. The ramp signal cases have stated increases in the value of the lungs during the inspiration rather than inspiratory gap. So this is the map is the respiratory depth to respiration imagination. The control of the rate of increases of the ramp signal, the control of limiting point of the which is the ramp, suddenly cases of shorting of inspiration, shorting of expirations, increasing the frequency of respirations. The next one, pneumatics center located dorsal in the nucleus, brachials of the upper pons control the switch off point of the inspiratory ramp. The limit inspiration increasing the rate of breathing from the breath of minutes 3 to 5 or 4 to 5. This is the ventral respiratory group. The ventral respiratory group is by RVLM, right, right ventral respiratory medium. Muscles, abingans and retrogenous inactive during the normal quiet respiration do not appear to parasitic in the basis of rhythmical oscillation. Increased respiratory drives both inspiration and expression abnormal muscles. The hearing burler inflation relax. The sensory nerve signals from the lungs. Like that, vagus nerves is the control by the respiratory rhythms and respiratory oxygen and carbon dioxide levels are that controlled by the vagus nerves. The sensory nerve signals from the lungs, the stretch receptors, muscular muscular protection of the walls of the branches and bronchioles vagus. The switches of the inspiration ramp increasing rate of the respiration. In humans not activated until the tidal volumes tidal values increases to more than 3 times normal. His value is VT less than 1.5 liter per breath. The proactive mechanism for preventing excesses of lung inflations. The chemical control of respiration. The chemical, the, the respiration rhythms are respiration, human being respiratory systems controlled by the nerve systems at the same time controlled by the chemical respirations. So ultimate goal of respiration is to maintain the proper concentration of oxygen and carbon dioxide and hydrogens in the tissues. The carbon dioxide releases or hydrogens act to directly on the respiratory centers. The oxygen does not have the significant direct effects almost entirely in the peripheral chemoreceptors, carotid and artery bodies. So this is the direct chemical controls, which is the areas of direct control of the particular pressure. Additional neuronal areas, the chemosensitive area located bilaterally lying only 0.2 millimeter bent the ventral surface of the medulla, highly sensitive to changes in either blood or hydrogen concentrations. So this is the inspiration areas of chemosensitive areas, the oxygen releasing and hydrogen receiving the particular places. The influence of hydrogen may be the only important direct stimulus for the chemosensitive neurons. However, hydrogen do not easily cross the blood-brain barrier, less effective than uh, carbon dioxide, pressure carbon dioxide. The influence of carbon pressure carbon dioxide, the little direct effect of the stimulating in the neurons in the chemosensitive areas, potent indirect effect action through hydrogen ions, blood brain barriers almost do not exist for carbon dioxide. So see, this is the existing of carbon dioxide chemosensitive areas like that. This is the chemosensitive area, and this is the inspirational areas of the receiving the hydrogen ions and releasing of carbon dioxide. Decrease the stimulatory factor of carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide CO2 exhausts its respiratory center greater than first few hours after the pressure carbon dioxide first increases but then is gradually declines. However, the next 1 to 2 days to 1 by 5 the initial effect. The action of the kidneys increase level of bicarbonates in blood, cerebrospinal fluid in the intracellular fluids. Intracellular fluids. The quantitative effect of carbon dioxide and the however ventilation of normal range of the pressure carbon dioxide in blood is between to 35 and 75 milligrams of blood. Then normal ranges of pH, the normal range pH is 7.3 to 7.5. So this is the potential of hydrates of range of blood. Then this is the curve of uh, alveolar ventilation curve basal of rate is equal to 1. This is the pH, this is the pressure carbon dioxide, this is the pressure normal growth in 40. It is the 40 mhg is a resting period, the resting mode. So this is the understood to the ventral percentage of uh, pH and pressure carbon dioxide. The direct effect of oxygen virtually to direct effect on the respiratory center, very effective hemoglobin oxygen buffer systems from 60 to 1000 milligram milliharm hydrohemoglobin. The special conditional with the lack of oxygen peripheral chemoreceptors. The peripheral chemoreceptor systems have role of oxygen. The special nervous chemical receptors, chemoreceptors, several areas of outside in the brain changes in oxygen and carbon dioxide and hydrogen. The transmit nerves the signal in the receptor centers. Corticoid bodies, earrings nerves, glossoperipheral nerves, aortic bodies, aortic bodies is a vagus nerve, dorsal medullary respiratory area. The minute artery blood flow 20 times in the weight of the bodies themselves, increasing of increasing of oxygen removed from the following following the blood eventually blood eventually zero. So this is the oxygen nerve, the particular so this is the medulla nerve, then glossopharyngeal nerves, and this is the vagus nodi and nerve, then corticoid body, aortic body, cortiotic and aortic body. This is the structure of alveoli and respiratory organ. So this is the carotid body nerve impulse per second, like that arterial oxygen per second. This image of like that to L shape. So this is a millisecond structure. The influence of carbon dioxide and hydrogens on chemoreceptors. The chemoreceptors is the also existing the chemoreceptors direct effect of the both those factors in the respiratory centers itself are much are powerful, like the 7x. The 5x is rapidly central stimulus onset of exercise. Then the next one, basic mechanism of stimulation of the chemoreceptors by oxygen. This is the basical oxygen receiving the organs and discharge of carbon dioxide. The exact means are still unknown. Basic mechanism stimulation, the chemoreceptors by oxygen. The exactly now today's the exact means are the still unknown. Glomus cells, glandular like cells, synapses directly or indirectly which with the nerve endings opposing opponent's nerve ending might functions of the chemoreceptors. So this is the arterial pressure oxygen for a second like that sigma structure. Then next one, phenomena of assimilations. What is the phenomenon of assimilations? Within 2 to 3 days, the receptor centers losses about the 4-5 of its sensitive to changes of pressure, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen ions. Instead of 70% of increasing acute alveolar ventilations increasing 4 to 500% after 2 to 3 days of low oxygen. Then next one, composite effects of mm, carbon dioxide and potential oxides and oxygen alveolar ventilation. So this is the three: oxygen, carbon dioxide, hydrogen ions, at the same time pH. pH is the normal blood pH is 7.4. The pH means potential of hydrates. So then next one, the regulating respiration during the exercise. Oxygen consumption and carbon dioxide formation can increasing as much as 20-fold. The alveolar ventilations are ordinarily increasing almost exactly in steps with the increasing levels of oxygen metabolism. Then arterial pressure, oxygen and pressure, carbon dioxide and pH remain almost exactly normal positions. So this is the consumption of oxygen levels for the during time of exercise. The moderate exercise, then severe exercise. So both is the difference. This is a moderate exercise. The breathing is very low. This is a severe exercise. The breathing is more than. Though this is the consumption of oxygen levels. What case the increased ventilations during the exercise? The chemical changes is no. The con- the collateral impulse into the brain stem to exercise the respiratory center analogous to in the increase in arterial pressures. The excitations of pre-receptors in the joints and the muscles and exercise the respiratory centers and hypoxic muscles variations in pressure carbon dioxide and pressure oxygens. PCOT and PO2. The interrelations between chemical and nervous factors. The associationally, the nerves respiratory controls the signals and are either too stronger or too weak. The chemical factors play a significant role in the final adjustment or respirations. The increasing of alveolar ventilations decreases enteral PCO2 below normal at the one set of exercise. So this is the minutes of exercise, the during of resting periods. So this is the alveolar pressure carbon dioxide exercise normal. The brain's ability to shift the ventilatory, ventilatory response curve during the exercise in the least of pattern of leading response. With repeated periods of exercise, then brain become the progressively more able to provide the proper signals. Even the cerebral cortex is involved in this learning because of experiments that block only the cortex. Anesthesia also block us the learned response. The voluntary control of respirations. One can hyperventilate well ventilate of hypoventilate to such an extent that the serious dearrangements in PCOT, pH, and O2 can occur in the blood. The directly from the cortex or the higher centers. The effect of errant receptors in the airways. Epithelium of the trachea, bronchial, and bronchochial is supplied with sensory nerves ending celled pulmonary irritant receptors causing ca- catching and sneezing. Then the function of lungs J receptors. The what type of receptors in the lungs of functions? The mainly the few sensor nerves ending the alveolar walls of just justifications up to the pulmonary capillaries. Stimulated when the pulmonary capillaries become engorged with the blood or when pulmonary edema occurs heart failure. The exalted may give the person a feeling of dyspnea. So very important of effect of brain edema. Depressed or even inactivated respiratory center acute brain edema resulting from the brain contusions therapy intervenes injection of hypertonic solutions such as highly concentrated manual manual solutions. The anesthesia overdose with the anesthesia or narcotics respiratory arrest. Sodium, phenobacterial, altonin, and morphine. Like the like that, this is the periodic breathing. The occurs in a number of disease conditions. Persons breathes deeply uh, for a short interval and then breathes of signal slightly or not at all or an additional interval. The most common can stop breathing, slowly waxing and winning respiration occur about every 40 to 60 seconds. This is the depth of respiration in every 40 to 60 seconds. The pressure carbon dioxide lung in blood and pressure carbon dioxide respiratory nerves and respiratory centers existed. So this is the every 40 to 30 seconds. Then basic mechanism of uh, Stokes breathings. It takes a few seconds before the pulmonary blood can be transported to the brain. Under normal conditions, this mechanism is highly de- dim- dampened. The long delay occurs for transported blood from the lungs to the brain, survey cardiac failure. The increase of the negative feedback, brain damage, and and pandemic and periodic areas. So this is the our nature to breathing of respiration. So the next one is the oxygen and complete of areas to the spleen epicea. The spleen epicea is the one of the ratio to the particular wavelengths. Like that, uh, human beings also respiratory factors depend by the particular uh, donations, particular areas. The spleen areas like that, apnea, absence of spontaneous breathing, occasional apnea occur during the normal sleep. In person with sleep apnea, frequency and duration are greatly increased, occurring 300 to 500 times in each night, lasting for 10 seconds or longer. Obstruction of the upper airways are impaired CNS respiratory drive. What is the meaning of CNS? Central nervous systems. Then uh, obstructive sleep apnea, the caused by blockage of the upper airways muscles of the pharynx normally keep pages open. During the sleep, those muscles usually relax. The airways passes remains open enough to the permanent adjust airflow. The sometimes individual have an especially narrow passes and relaxation of the muscles during the sleep cages of the pharynx to the completely closed to that air cannot flow into the lung. The loud snoring and laboral breathing occur. Apnea, pressure oxygen and pressure carbon dioxide, great stimulation of respiration, fragmented restful sleep, executive denied drowsiness in increasing of systematic activities. In older basis person, nasal absorption, very large tongue, elongated tonsils are shapes of the plated. therapy, the surgical removal of the excess of fat tissues in the back of the throat. Enlarged tonsils are Adenode, ad, adenoids are creations of opening in the trachea to bypass the obstructed airways during the sleep. Nasal ventilation, which continuous positive airways pressures and CPA. So the next one, the central sleep apnea. The central nervous systems drive to the ventilatory muscles cases damage to the central respiratory centers, abnormalities of the respiratory neuromuscular apparatus may have decreased ventilations when they are wake up, although they are fully capable of normal voluntary breathing caused by the stroke. So this is the heart heart direction functions. So then next one see next one. So this is the oxygen dissociation curves and the transport of carbon dioxide and transport the oxygen. See the one of slide. uh, one minute. Next one, the chloride shift. Mm, so this is the chloride shift or hamburger phenomena. So the greater preparation 70% of carbon dioxide is transported in the from the bicarbonates. So mainly chloride shift or hamburger phenomena very important of the chloride shift or hamburger phenomena. The greater proportion 70% of carbon dioxide is transported in the form of bicarbonates. The structure of changes to carbon dioxide to bicarbonates. The carbon dioxide reached that the water of the cytoplasm in the presence of enzyme carbonic anhydrase to the cardiac acid to the cardiac acid. The carbonic acid is a weak acid which undergoes the partial dissociation of hydrogen is ion in bicarbonate ion. The given reaction mostly occur inside of red blood cells because the enzyme carbonic anhydrase is obtained there. So see, this image is completely the transport of oxygen and chloride shift to carbon bicarbonate to structure, dissociation of flow and carbohydrate carbonic anhydrase, the base of hemoglobin. This is the plasma. So this is the particular this one. The next one, the Diagrammatic representation of chloride shift in RBC cells, carbon dioxide combines with the water to from carbonic acid, which dissociation to give the hydrogen ions and bicarbonates. In the presence of enzyme carbonic anhydrase, the bicarbonates and ion diffuse the RB cells in the plasma, combines with the sodium ions of the sodium bicarbonate NaHCO3. The loss of bicarbonate ions from the RB cells cause positive charges inside the red blood cells, which is balanced by diffusion of chlorides ions from the plasma into the RB cells. This exchanges of chloride ion in bicarbonate ion between plasma and RB cells is known as chloride shift. Nothing to chloride shift. The chloride shift is the this exchanges of chloride ions and bicarbonate ions between plasma and RBC cells is known as the chloride shift. This phenomenon as chloride shift maintain the electrical neurological cells. This phenomena is also known of Hamburger phenomena. Reverse of chloride shift occurs in tissue cells. The definition of the chloride shift. The Western and Pagesh define the chloride shift as the movement of chloride ions from the plasma into red blood cells as blood undergoes the transist- transition from arterial to venous gas partial pressures. This is the chloride shift. The most important points are chloride moves into the erythrocytes and bicarbonates moves out in venous blood. The chloride moves into erythrocyte. The chlorides move to the erythrocyte and bicarbonates moved outside venous blood. Nothing to the chloride shift means receiving the chlorides and bicarbonates are adjusting bicarbonates. The reverse events take place in the pulmonary capillaries. The mechanism of chloride shift, the, the molecular mechanism of the chloride shift are uh, described into detail below. In summary, this phenomena is only possible because of the presence of carbonic anhydrase in red blood cells. It is seen as a critical important element. It is the conduct concentrated there but essential absent from the bloodstream otherwise. Without it, the reaction conversion carbon dioxide bicarbonates would be slow with massive amount of erythrocyte carbonic anhydrase. We can instead out of those molecular transmission to the complete in the space of one circulation time. In fact, in fact, because all the required proteins are available in massive concentration, the reaction incredible fast wind brim determined that 99% of the chloride shift process is complete within about the 700 million seconds. So see, this is the carbon dioxide and carbohydrates, the erythrocytes, carbonic anhydrase. The association is the carbonic anhydrase. The bicarbonates and bicarbonates and carbon dioxide hydrogen ions are buffered by the interactions of the proteins of the phosphates. In summary, in the peripheral nervous system, the peripheral capillary and venous blood, carbon dioxide diffuses into the red cells when the partial pressures of carbon dioxide increase in the peripheral capillary blood due to the cellular respiration. It enters the red cells fairly easily as it is lipid soluble. The clocks maintains offered that it is diffusion in the slowly peripheral 60% by the increased viscosity of the red cells systole, but this is not a massive problem because the diffusion distance is about 1 micron, one mic, one one micrometer. Carbon dioxide is concerned into the bicarbonate. Hence, the systole, the deoxygenated hemoglobin has been acting as the proton accepting buffer, which has increased the pH of the systole. The increase of pH facilitates the conservation of carbon dioxide in the bicarbonate by carbonic anhydrase. The proteins produced by the process are buffered by intracellular phosphates and proteins. Again, mainly deoxygenated hemoglobin. The bicarbonate is exchanged for chloride by the band 3 exchange protein. For example, bicarbonate is removed, the chloride is shifted into the erythrocyte to maintain the natural electron changes. Band 3 is the super imaginative name given to the bicarbonate chloride exchanger by Pibrank et al. From the whom it is the third protein band from the top of in gel electrophoresis of red cell membranes. It would be have been quieted when the band 3 associate the 25% of the RB cells membranes. So this is the our complete uh, chloride shift as hamburger phenomena and regulation of regulation of respiration. This normal rate of respiration is in adult men in 15 to 18 times in men, and the rate of depth of respiration rate adjusted the required of the body. There is an efficient mechanism for the regulation breathing, which is maybe divided into the parts of nerves and chemical regulation. So this is respiration is now completed. Then next Sunday class is next Sunday class and going on. Next Sunday class going on. The circulation system. The circulation systems are depended by the open circulation system and closed circulation system, and single and double circulation. The mammalian art and function types of art structures the functioning, regulation of heart rate, and then next one, the blood clotting. The blood clotting factors involve the coagulation factor, intrinsic coagulation and extrinsic coagulation. Then next class, Sunday class, I will be discuss the circulation systems. So, any doubts, Navya? Hello, Navya.
Yes, sir.
Are you understanding this particular syllabus?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tomorrow I will discuss the circulation systems. Our slides are visible clearly now.
కనిపించాయి సార్.
Yeah? Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్.
Bye, bye.